Welcome back to Gen Z Politics, where we dissect the stories that define our media landscape and what they say about us. Today, we're breaking down a clip that's probably taken over your TikTok For You page, a moment of unscripted television that spiraled into pure chaos. The headline is dramatic. Morning show turns chaotic after heated exchange on air. It sounds like something from a movie, but this was very real, unfolding live in front of millions of viewers. We've all seen awkward interviews and minor technical glitches, but this was different. This was a fundamental breakdown in communication, a clash of ideologies that spilled out from behind the scenes and onto our screens. It's a case study in what happens when the carefully constructed facade of friendly morning television cracks under the pressure of our deeply polarized world. Before we dive into the how and why, make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This story isn't just about a shouting match, it's about the state of public discourse, the power of media platforms, and the immense difficulty of having a civil conversation in 2024. So, what exactly happened? On the surface, it was a simple segment on a popular, nationally syndicated morning talk show, let's call it Sunrise Today. The format is familiar. A panel of 3 hosts, typically a blend of personalities, interviewing guests about current events. The scheduled guest was Dr. Aliyah Vance, a prominent climate scientist and author of a new book on sustainable economics. The topic was meant to be a discussion on recent climate data and policy proposals. However, in what appears to have been a last-minute programming decision, the producers also invited Mark Devlin, a controversial political commentator known for his staunch opposition to many climate initiatives, framing them as economically damaging. The stage was set for a debate, a classic TV tactic to generate sparks and, hopefully, ratings. But what ensued was not a productive debate. It was a rapid descent into chaos, culminating in one host walking off set, another visibly furious, and the guest microphone being cut as voices raised. This wasn't planned drama. It was a genuine loss of control, and the video evidence is stark. But to understand this explosion, we need to look at the fuel that had been gathering long before the cameras started rolling that morning. To grasp the full context of this incident, we need to examine the 3 key elements that collided: the show itself, the guests, and the underlying tension in the topic. First, Sunrise Today is a prime example of a modern morning show. Its brand is built on being accessible, upbeat, and non-threatening. It's a place for light news, celebrity interviews, and lifestyle segments. The hosts are chosen for their likability and their ability to guide conversations smoothly without creating discomfort for the viewer. They are facilitators, not interrogators. The introduction of a debate format on a complex, divisive issue like climate policy is inherently risky for such a program. The producers likely hoped for a controlled, spirited discussion that would make the segment feel important and relevant, but the very nature of the show's friendly environment is ill-suited to managing genuine, high-stakes conflict. The hosts are not trained moderators for a presidential debate, they are conversationalists. Second, we have the guests. Dr. Aliyah Vance is a respected academic. Her communication style is based on data, peer-reviewed studies, and a consensus within the scientific community. She speaks with the patience of an educator, but as seen in the clip, she has a low tolerance for what she perceives as misinformation. On the other side, Mark Devlin operates in a completely different arena. His expertise is not in climate science but in political rhetoric. He is a skilled communicator who uses talking points designed to resonate with a specific audience, often focusing on economic anxiety and government overreach. He is adept at shifting the conversation from scientific facts to political consequences. Placing these 2 individuals together is like trying to mix oil and water. Their foundational approaches to establishing truth are diametrically opposed. One relies on empirical evidence, the other on ideological narrative. This is a fundamental mismatch that any producer should have recognized as volatile. Finally, the topic itself, climate policy. This is not just another political issue. For many, particularly for our Gen Z audience, it is an existential crisis. The emotional weight attached to it is immense. For scientists like Dr. Vance, inaction is a betrayal of future generations. For commentators like Mr. Devlin, aggressive action represents an unacceptable disruption to economic stability and personal freedom. This isn't a simple disagreement over tax rates, it's a clash of core values and visions for the future. When you combine a soft-focused morning show format with two guests who represent the extreme poles of this deeply emotional issue, you have a perfect recipe for the chaos that ultimately unfolded. The setting was wrong, the participants were mismatched, and the stakes were far too high for a segment sandwiched between a cooking demonstration and a weather forecast. Now, let's walk through the main event step by step, analyzing the exchange that led to the breakdown. The segment began cordially enough. The lead host, Sarah, introduced both guests and outlined the topic, balancing climate goals with economic growth. Dr. Vance spoke first, outlining her key points about the long-term economic benefits of investing in green technology and the escalating costs of climate-related disasters. She was concise and stuck to her data. Mark Devlin followed, immediately pivoting from the global scale to the personal. He began talking about the forgotten American family, and how carbon taxes would cripple them, using emotionally charged language but offering little specific data to counter-drive Vance's figures. This is where the first sign of trouble appeared. One of the other hosts, Ben, attempted to lighten the mood with a joke, saying, "Well, it sounds like we have two different forecasts here." The joke fell flat, highlighting the host's inability to manage the gravitas of the subject matter. The situation escalated rapidly when Sarah asked a follow-up question to Mr. Devlin, pressing him on the scientific consensus about human-caused climate change. Instead of answering directly, Mr. Devlin accused the mainstream media of only presenting one side of the story and attempted to discredit Drive Vance personally by referencing her university's funding sources, a classic ad hominem tactic. Dr. Vance, visibly angered, interjected, "That is a blatant mischaracterization and a diversion from the facts." Her tone was sharp, a departure from her earlier calm. The third host, Chloe, tried to regain control by saying, "Let's please keep this civil," but it was too late. The professional boundaries had been breached. Mr. Devlin retorted, "The facts are that these policies hurt working people, and you're refusing to acknowledge that reality." The conversation was no longer a discussion, it was a parallel monologue where neither side was listening. The point of no return came next. Dr. Vance, frustrated by the direction of the debate, directly addressed the hosts. "I was invited here to discuss science, not to debate someone who denies established reality. This is not a both sides issue, it's a fact-based issue." This statement was a critique of the very premise of the segment. In response, Mr. Devlin smirked and said, "And there it is, the elitism. If you can't win the argument, you just say your opponent shouldn't be allowed to speak." This comment triggered host Ben, who had remained relatively quiet. He leaned into his microphone, his voice tense, and said, "Mark, with all due respect, that's not what she said. Can we please address the question?" This was the critical moment. A host had abandoned the neutral facilitator role and had entered the fray, taking a side. The dynamic shifted instantly from a two-guest debate to a three-way argument. Sarah, the lead host, was now frantically trying to speak over everyone, saying, "Okay, we need to take a break," but Ben and Mr. Devlin were already in a heated back and forth, talking over each other. Chloe, looking at the producer off camera, stood up, removed her microphone, and walked off set, an action captured clearly by a wide camera shot. The audio became a jumble of raised voices before the screen abruptly cut to a commercial. The chaos was complete. The immediate reactions and statements following the incident were as revealing as the incident itself. Social media, as expected, exploded. The clip was edited into short, impactful videos, each framed to support a predetermined narrative. On one side, supporters of Dr. Vance praised her for standing up to a climate denier, and criticized the show for platforming what they called dangerous misinformation. Host Ben was hailed as a hero for finally pushing back. Chloe, who walked off, was interpreted in two ways. Some saw it as a principled stand against a toxic environment, while others saw it as unprofessional. On the other side, supporters of Mark Devlin framed the event as an example of liberal intolerance. They argued that Dr. Vance and host Ben couldn't handle the truth, and that Chloe's walk-off was a melodramatic stunt. The hashtags #IStandWithDrVance and #Devlin told the truth trended simultaneously, illustrating the parallel universes of online discourse. Formal statements began to trickle out hours later. The network that airs, Sunrise Today, issued a brief, carefully worded apology. We regret that today's discussion on climate policy did not meet the respectful standards we set for our show. We are evaluating our editorial processes to ensure future segments are constructive and informative. It was a classic corporate non-apology, accepting no real blame. Dr. Vance's institution released a statement supporting her, emphasizing her commitment to factual, science-based communication and expressing disappointment in the format she was placed in. Mark Devlin, unsurprisingly, used the incident to his advantage. He appeared on a rival news channel that evening, framing himself as a victim of cancel culture and a brave truth teller silenced by a biased media establishment. The most telling statement came from host Chloe, who posted a message on Instagram later that day. She wrote, "Sometimes, civility is used as a tool to normalize the unacceptable. Today, the conversation crossed a line from disagreement into the propagation of falsehoods. I chose to remove myself from that. My silence would not be complicity." This statement reframed her walk-off not as a loss of control, but as a deliberate act of moral protest. Host Ben and host Sarah remained silent on social media, likely bound by network contracts pending an internal review. The implications of this chaotic few minutes are profound and extend far beyond morning television ratings. Why does this matter to us, especially to a Gen Z audience? Firstly, it highlights the failure of the both sides debate format when applied to issues where a vast scientific or factual consensus exists. Presenting a climate scientist and a climate policy critic as equal counterparts gives a false impression of balance. It suggests that the evidence is equally weighted on both sides, which, in this case, it is not. This format, often used in media to appear fair, can actually mislead the public and create artificial controversy where none should exist. For a generation that will bear the greatest burden of climate consequences, this media failing is not just an academic point, it has real-world impacts on policy and public understanding. Secondly, the incident demonstrates the immense pressure on media figures in today's environment. Hosts are expected to be likable, neutral, and engaging, but they are also human beings with their own convictions. When faced with what they may perceive as harmful rhetoric, the choice to remain neutral can feel like endorsement. Host Ben's decision to intervene, while controversial, reflects this internal struggle. Is the role of a host to ensure a smooth conversation at all costs, or is it to challenge statements they believe to be false, even if it breaks the format? There is no easy answer, but this event forces the industry to confront the question. Furthermore, Chloe's walk-off raises questions about the limits of professional obligation. When does an employee have the right to disengage from a situation they deem ethically compromising? This is a question relevant to many workplaces, not just TV studios. Finally, the chaotic exchange and its aftermath are a microcosm of our national and global conversation. We are losing, or have perhaps already lost, the ability to engage in productive disagreement. Our platforms, both traditional and social, are designed to encourage conflict and emotional reaction because it drives engagement. A calm, nuanced discussion about complex policy doesn't go viral, a shouting match does. This creates a perverse incentive for media producers to create these volatile situations, even if they can't control them. For Gen Z, who are digital natives, understanding this incentive structure is crucial. We must become critical consumers of media, questioning not just the content of an argument but the format in which it is presented. We have to ask, is this designed to inform me, or simply to enrage and engage me? In conclusion, the chaotic morning show segment was more than just bad television. It was a symptom of a broader societal sickness, the erosion of a shared reality and the tools for civil discourse. The producers failed by creating a volatile situation for short-term gain. The guests were set up to fail, forced into a gladiatorial arena that favored rhetorical point scoring over truth-seeking. The hosts were put in an impossible position, tasked with maintaining a cheerful atmosphere over a topic that is, by its nature, deeply alarming. The solution is not to avoid difficult conversations, but to structure them with integrity. This means moving away from sensationalist debate formats and toward nuanced, well-moderated conversations that prioritize facts and depth over soundbite clashes. It means media outlets taking responsibility for the platforms they provide and the messages they amplify. For us, The audience, it means demanding better. It means rewarding content that challenges us thoughtfully, not just content that angers us. The question we are left with is this. In a world that constantly pushes us toward outrage, how do we, as a generation, rebuild the spaces for dialogue that are both passionate and productive? How do we have the hard conversations without letting them turn into chaos? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And as always, if you found this analysis valuable, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more content that goes beyond the headline. Thanks for watching.